Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Business Records Made in Iowa Manufacturing Forecast event. Today, we're going to be diving into the state's largest industry, manufacturing, to explore how it's adapting to changing conditions, innovating through challenges, and discussing what the road looks like economically. I'm Chris Koneski, president of Business Publications Corporation, and we're proud to bring you this important conversation today. At the Business Record, our mission is simple. It's to help businesses do business better. Our audience is the reason that we do what we do, and today we've lined up an insightful program, and I'm confident you're going to walk away with it with a number of valuable perspectives. Before we dive in, though, I'd like to take a moment to thank and introduce the sponsors who are helping make today's event possible. First, a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Lean Techniques, which is a trusted technology consulting firm that helps make organizations' technology a true competitive advantage. And I want to thank Jason Buck for joining us today. So Jason, welcome aboard and tell us a little bit more about Lean Techniques.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Like Chris said, I'm Jason Buck. I'm the Business Development Director at Lean Techniques. We're very happy to be the presenting sponsor for this year's manufacturing forecast. And thank you so much to the Business Record for putting this event together each and every year. It's always fantastic. We're very happy to be a part of it. This forecast is really important to us, not only as an Iowa company, but because nearly half of our customers are manufacturers. So the challenges and opportunities on today's agenda are really the same conversations that we're having with our customers every day, including where technology fits and how it goes from being a cost center to a competitive advantage. So right now, much of our work is really centered on the systems that customers touch and the processes that run their business, and specifically in three areas in particular. First, it's really just helping manufacturers digitize their customer experience, their dealer platforms, fleet telematics apps, product configurators. It all comes down to your customers and dealers getting the information and answers they need without waiting. Second, we do a lot of data work, right? Better visibility into what's actually happening within your business and in real-time inventory that's actually real-time. And third, shocker, advisory and implementation work around AI and automation, specifically really as it relates to better operations and more efficient and effective software delivery practices. Our customer AI engagements have actually resulted in real impact of about 200% increase in code development and up to 10x improvement in code quality. So pretty staggering results in what we've been doing with some of our AI accelerators with our manufacturing clients. So if any of this is what you're looking at, what you're working with right now, if you have other focus areas or just some questions, I'd love to chat with you. So please just feel free to reach out directly via LinkedIn or check out our website at leantechniques.com. Thank you again to the Business Record, Andrea, Stacy, Lisa, Chris for hosting this conversation, and to the panelists as well for what I know is going to be a ton of valuable insight. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you to the team at Lean Techniques for sponsoring. There's no shortage of increasing costs for manufacturers, and technology might be one of those, but also one that, of course, can lead to some competitive advantage. So I hope you check out Lean Techniques. We're also supported today by McKee, Voorhees, and Cease. MVS has been a leading firm specializing in intellectual property law since 1924, and their team of advanced manufacturing attorneys is not only equipped with degrees related to the fields of work that they practice, but more importantly, real-world manufacturing experience. Thank you to Julie Speaker for joining us today. Welcome, Julie, and tell us a little bit more about MVS.
Hello, and welcome to Business Records Manufacturing Forecast. I'm Julie Speaker, Senior Counsel at McKee, Voorhees, and Cease, an intellectual property law firm headquartered right here in Des Moines. We're proud to sponsor today's event and to support Iowa's outstanding manufacturing community. Manufacturing has long been a cornerstone of Iowa's economy. It fuels innovation, creates high-quality jobs, and strengthens communities across our state. At MVS, we're fortunate to work with manufacturers of every size, helping them to protect the ideas, technologies, brands, and innovations that give them a competitive edge in an ever-evolving global marketplace. For more than 100 years, our firm has helped clients navigate the complexities of patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. Many of our attorneys have backgrounds in engineering, chemistry, and other technical fields, giving us a deep understanding of the innovations our clients bring to market and the importance of protecting the investments behind them. The manufacturing landscape continues to evolve rapidly. Advances in artificial intelligence, automation, shifting supply chains, workforce challenges, and global competition are creating both new opportunities and new complexities. Yet Iowa manufacturers have consistently demonstrated what it means to be Iowa strong, innovative, resilient, and ready to adapt. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. We appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this event, and we hope you all leave today's discussions with valuable insights and new ideas. So to all, please enjoy the program.
Thank you, Julie, and thanks again to the MVS team for helping support today's event. We're also supported by the Iowa Economic Development Authority. IEDA has been a driving force behind strengthening Iowa's manufacturing sector, from supporting innovation and automation to helping businesses grow, train talent, and compete globally. A big thank you to IEDA for helping support today's event. All right, we're going to go ahead and get ready to start off our panel discussion. It's my pleasure today to introduce our moderator, Lisa Fox, who is also the host of Business Records Made in Iowa podcast, which is presented by Wellmark. Through the podcast, Lisa brings the stories of Iowa's business leaders and innovators to audiences across the state, making her the perfect person to lead today's conversation. One of the best things about today's event is that the conversation doesn't end when the panel wraps up. It's just an opportunity for us to keep the discussion going, making new connections and exploring these ideas in new ways. And we get to do that each and every week with the Made in Iowa podcast that Lisa hosts. If you have any questions or comments for today's panelists as we get going, feel free to throw them in the chat that's on the right side of your screen. And on that note, Lisa, welcome. And I'll turn it to you to lead us through the rest of today's discussion. Oop, I'm mute there, Lisa.
Technology, I love it.
You're
Thanks
good
so
to
much,
go.
Chris. I am Lisa Fox, the host of Made in Iowa. I'm grateful to moderate today's discussion because I love manufacturing. I want to thank our sponsors, our panelists, and everyone joining us live. Manufacturing remains Iowa's largest industry. In 2025, it generated approximately $44 billion in state GDP. It represents roughly 17% of Iowa's economy and places Iowa among the nation's top states for manufacturing concentration. The sector directly employed about 216,000 Iowans in 2025 and paid approximately $16.6 billion in wages. At the same time, inflation-adjusted manufacturing output in Iowa has been relatively flat in recent years, while national output has continued to grow. That tension makes today's theme especially timely: adaptation through innovation. Rather than ask every panelist every question, we'll feature 4 focused conversations about the decisions behind adaptation and the results, surprises, and lessons that followed. Let's introduce our panelists and dive in. With us, we have Daniel Doderer, economist and senior consultant for ITR Economics, Brad Jungling, vice president of operations for LDJ Manufacturing, and they manufacture Thunder Creek trailers. Lori Mason is the president of Seneca Foundry, and Ton Stam is co-founder of Chocolaterie Stam. Thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to kick things off with our economist, Daniel Doderer, to help us set the scene on the manufacturing economy, which provides a foundation for why adaptation is so important. Daniel helps executives translate economic and market trends into practical business strategy. His expertise spans macroeconomic analysis, commodity markets, financial risk management, and manufacturing, exactly the mix that Iowa leaders need as they plan for 2027. Daniel, we're going to start broad. ITR has described 2026 as a year of uneven, mild growth. Put that in plain English for an Iowa manufacturer looking at orders, backlog, and customer demand today.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you very much for having me, Lisa. And I'm excited to be here and to talk about the economy. Obviously, it's something I'm spending a lot of time thinking about. So directly to your question, I think that a lot of folks have been hearing about the K-shaped economy when it comes to the consumer, right? It's kind of an idea that high wealth individuals have been driving a lot of the activity forward, while lower income groups have largely felt like it's been a recession for a brief period of time. Now, when we think about the industrial sector, we also see it as within a K shape. So if you're in the area of electrification, data centers, or maybe in the medical industries, you're probably feeling pretty great right now with what's going on. On the legacy manufacturing side, though, machinery or fabricated metal products, we're actually seeing that within the data we're below pre-pandemic levels in total output on a national degree. So what a lot of people are experiencing right now is being driven by prices, by inflation. And as you characterize it, we expect the overall industrial sector to grow to 1.5% by the end of this year. But again, a lot of that really is being driven by price. We expect that over the next couple of years, as you're thinking about it, that 2027 will slow down a little bit, but not dip into a broad recession. And then we do anticipate reacceleration from there. So making that a little bit more practical, over the next couple of years, we really think that profitability analysis is going to be important, and potentially some hard decisions about maybe what's not working right now, because cost pressure is not going to subside.
Okay, now I need to help you to help me separate that growth from inflation. A company may see revenues rise while labor, materials, and financing costs rise with it. How should a leader determine whether the business is truly growing and protect that margin?
Well, I think that this is a great opportunity for a shameless plug. ITR Economics works with many small to medium-sized manufacturers. That's really the bread and butter of what we do. And what we provide is a market-based forecast. So what we'll do is we'll find where you fit in within the macro economy, and we'll correlate you, we'll compare you to how those sectors are growing, and we'll give you a very clear indication on a production side, on an order side, exactly where you are, without really any doubt of what's price and what's actual activity.
And let's turn the forecast into action. ITR's latest outlook suggests 2026 momentum might slow in 27. If you're sitting in an Iowa manufacturer's planning meeting today, what would you advise on capacity, inventory, hiring, pricing, and capital investment over the next 12 to 18 months?
Now, that's a really great question that can send me in a lot of different directions. I think the simplest answer is that we'd love to be deeply involved with exactly what's happening for you and what your needs are. But thinking about things in more broad terms, right? Our expectation going into this year was that the Federal Reserve was not going to be cutting interest rates, which was separate from the market's perspective. We saw hold to hike as a higher likelihood. And now, generally, that's what everyone believes. 1 to 2 hikes, depending on the day, is kind of what the market's anticipating. So with that in mind, some people who are maybe on the fence and thinking that I should wait for cuts, we don't think that necessarily is something that you should be doing right now. We think that if there's an opportunity to move into a growing business or a growing sector, when you think about electrification, when you think about data centers, you think about some of those more high growth areas, we think that you should look to be diversifying right now. For anyone who's seen an ITR presentation, we do keynotes primarily. I'm sure that you will know that the 2030s is really something that we've been talking about as a big risk. We do anticipate a pretty prolonged downturn in the 2030s. So for your business, you really need to balance now, how am I going to diversify as we're looking to this time period? And how am I going to bring more offerings to make sure that I have opportunity in a more difficult time period, while also thinking about, how much debt do I really want to be taking on? So there's a lot to balance. We think that right now is not a time to put a lot of risk with inventories or capacity. We think that running as efficiently as possible is definitely the best thing to be doing right now.
We've been talking sort of broadly, nationally. I want to bring it specifically to Iowa. Iowa is especially exposed to agriculture, food production, metal, construction. Which leading indicators should manufacturers in those markets watch most closely? And where do you see the strongest and weakest demand?
Sure. I think that gets back to one of the points that I had made, right? There is a fair bit of exposure within Iowa on the metals part of things. We don't anticipate that to really accelerate too sharply going into the next couple of years. Not that it's going to create we're not calling for a recession within that area. But something that I do want to plug, something I do want to kind of bring to the forefront is that we actually just did some really fascinating state level research. I'd love to share that with you briefly. Some of the key points about how we're viewing Iowa over the next couple of years. So we had 5 pillars generally on how each of the states are performing, and we've ranked each of them. And some of the areas that are really where we're really optimistic about Iowa specifically are going to be how the debt has been managed. So the state has been very well managed. Debt per capita is in an extraordinarily healthy position. The consumer is really well positioned as well. And what we've seen, something that's very important, is general recession resilience. So that gets to a point of the question that you had mentioned. So the agricultural space and the food space is actually an area where we're pretty optimistic, and we think that it puts Iowa in a relatively good position for the broader downturn. There's some opportunity to be in a decent spot in the overall national downturn that we're anticipating. With that in mind, though, I do want to flag 2 other areas of risk, and maybe one of those isn't going to be as bad as it sounds. But within the ranking, the population growth is one thing that does bring a little bit of concern. It's below the national trend there, with about 3.6% population increase over the last decade, versus the national 6.5% increase. On the other hand, the other component is the macroeconomic resiliency. So how diversified is the state? And you mentioned this before, but just the fact that agriculture is such a large part is a bit of cause of concern. However, when we think about the 2030s and we think about some of the things that are going to hold up better, food is actually one of the areas where we're encouraging a lot of our clients to try to diversify into. So that does that strong relationship could help Iowa over the longer term. Overall, not to hide the information, Iowa ranked 18th overall, so in an above average position. So there's a lot to be encouraged about there.
Awesome. Going back to diversification and the need for our folks, that's the one thing that has impressed me so much, not only with the group that we've got today, but the other interviews that I do on a weekly basis. That diversification is so incredibly important.
Yeah, it really is. And when we think about the 2030s especially, right? This is something that we've been talking about at ITR since 2014. So it's been a big topic of conversation. We're now at a point where we're getting very close to the 2030s. And just to briefly familiarize folks who maybe haven't heard about that outlook before, we're looking at 5 trends in demographics and healthcare costs, in entitlement spending, inflation, and the U.S. national debt that are really these immovable objects that are going to have to be dealt with. We view the 2030s as the time when they will be dealt with. So in that lens, we do think that diversifying, getting into service areas where possible, getting into food, which is definitely a benefit to Iowa, and some other areas it's really going to be important right now to make hard decisions about maybe what isn't profitable but was a part of our legacy industry, and start to focus on maybe what the next decade should look like.
Amazing. We'll get back to you, Daniel. Now I'm going to transition over to Brad Jungling, and I got the great pleasure to tour LDJ Manufacturing. Oh, it's probably been a month ago, and talk about adaptation. You guys are taking advantage of so many process efficiencies, layout efficiencies within your factory floor, and ownership adaptation as well. Talk about the most critical adaptations that have created the opportunity that you see them today, Brad.
First of all, thanks for having me, Lisa. We really enjoyed having you for the tour too, by the way. Yeah, you know, we're manufacturing in an area of the state that's got some really good manufacturers. So we're at a battle for workforce all the time. So I would say, you know, one of the things we've really been focused on is how do we set ourselves apart from a culture standpoint and tell that story locally so that we're attracting people to our culture. The other piece is we've got to make sure we're using our human resources as innovatively as we can. So assisting them through automation, having automation do the things that a human being doesn't really like to do, the dark and dirty and dangerous things, which also, you know, translates to how do we then use that automation to set our team members up for success. So when the craftsmanship needs to be done by a human being, we're presenting them with parts that are produced automatically that are, you know, that are well perfect is, you know, what our goal would be.
Let's go back to the relationship you have not only with your employees, but with your customers. One of the adaptations that you've made recently is in your product. So let's talk about really quickly what you produce and that adaptation to the vehicles rather than the trailers.
Sure. Yeah, the company started as a farm family, Lauren and Jean Van Wyk and Luke and Chad, their children, and they were firmly in the ag industry. So they were farmers solving problems for farmers. So a few things they did to get on their feet, and then they started the Thunder Creek brand about 15 years ago, and that was for the ag industry. So it's tailored to what farmers need. Also taking advantage of some exceptions that farmers have to be able to haul fuel down the road, bulk fuel. Since then, we've diversified into what we call industrial. So we're now serving the construction industry, the fleet industry, logging, rental services company has been a huge part of our customer base, disaster recovery. Any place that needs diesel fuel and DEF or preventative maintenance fluids delivered to a job site, we're going after. So going from ag to industrial was a big shift, and that's opened up a tremendous opportunity for us. That's where we see our growth, at least in the near term, tremendous growth. And then going from just trailers to truck upfits. So we're putting all the great innovation that we had in trailers and putting them on medium duty truck chassis. That's also been another advance that allowed us to get into a whole nother market segment, doing similar things, but through a different way.
One of the things that struck me as I did the tour, you've got a very diverse age population within your workforce. I got the opportunity to meet Levi, and you recruited Levi out of a dissimilar industry and brought him in. He's now leading a team, and the passion and energy that he brings to his work and to his employees is amazing. Talk about the autonomy that you give your team leads and employees to make changes throughout the plant as they see the need.
Yeah, you know, after almost 36 years in manufacturing, I've learned sometimes the hard way that you need to listen to your experts every day. And you need to empower your experts. Delegating is not just delegating tasks, it's delegating authority, right? So how do we help our team members have that authority to make great decisions? Levi is someone who comes from a background where he's He's already had some supervisor experience. He was a college athlete. He understands how to inspire people, but didn't know anything about our business. And a few people looked at him a little sideways when he came in because he don't know anything about what we're doing. Quickly, he won people over, and now he's leading a team of people. Some of them could be his parents or grandparents. He's earned their respect because he's listening to them and he's enabling the ideas that they have to come to reality. So yeah, the diversity here it's fun because we've got a culture that people are all on the same team. We're 100% employee-owned ESOP, so we're rowing the boat in the same direction. So our more veteran team members are looking to our younger team members with more of a rah-rah attitude than you're coming in here to take my job, because at the end of the day, we're all going to celebrate the success of the business.
Let's spend just a minute talking about that transition and that adaptation that you made to employee ownership and what that transparency in finances for the profitability and health of the organization has done to empower the employees.
Yeah. Yeah, in 2022, there was a transition from private ownership. So the Van Wyck family, in essence, sold the business to the employees in an ESOP, and we're now 100% employee owned. Quarterly, we get the team together, and we're very transparent about how the business is doing. It's red-green, but it's we're not doing so well here. We're doing well here, and this is how it all fits together. And we feel like it's very important for everybody to understand that. And to share that with them so that they can go off and say, okay, what can I do about that? I see that we're a little overspent in our non-labor spending. Well, for me, that's, do I change my gloves every day or do I use my same gloves for 3 days in a row? Trying to link that all together because once a year we value the company, the shares are revalued. And if we're all doing our job, because we're all leading here, we should see the share value go up, and that turns into an increase in their retirement fund. So yeah, really trying to just paint what we're trying to do, how we're trying to satisfy customers, and then how we're trying to do that profitably and really turn them loose and help them figure out how to do that as efficiently as possible.
The thing I was struck with, if you don't know LDJ, they sit off of 163. And from the outside, it looks like a farmstead. The thing that amazed me was the amount of automation and robotics that's going on within the walls of their factory. Talk about the decisions you make to automate and how you invest those dollars.
Yeah, sometimes when people come and they're surprised to see our 125,000 square foot machine shed attached to a barn. When you come in here, it looks a little different than it does from the outside. Yeah, this company has been innovative for 30 years. So, you know, some innovations that steel fabrication companies have, such as laser welding or automatic welders, laser cutting, this company has been doing that for many years. What we're trying to do now is take that to another level so that we can, again, assist our team members to be more efficient by automating the things that are difficult for them, or we need great precision, or the downstream customer needs something that doesn't have a human, the variability of a human doing it. So really trying to focus on how is this automation going to help our team be more successful, more efficient. Our team members don't fight this at all. So we just implemented it's a robotic arm that feeds a press brake. We now have a robot that's handling 240-pound pieces of metal rather than 2 or 3 people handling two. That's intuitive to people, like, oh, thank you, that's great, right? We're working on another project where we're gonna automate the infeed into a robotic welder because that's something that's difficult for people, and they get behind and they feel pressured because they can't keep that robotic welder running. This continuous improvement project is really to help them keep up and to make sure that they can handle feeding and off feeding that machine and keeping it productive.
Awesome. We're going to transition now over to Lori Mason, who is with Seneca Foundry. I had the pleasure to tour Seneca Foundry probably, I think we decided, Lori, it was 20 years ago when Kirk McCullough led the organization. I recently went back up to Seneca Foundry, and Lori, the changes that you have made in your operation, again, adapting to the changes in the workforce and providing a really comfortable place for your employees to work was amazing. I'd like you to start with your journey at Seneca Foundry and your transition into the presidency, because that transition led to the adaptation that you're experiencing today.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me. And so the transition. So I started at Seneca more than 20 years ago in the accounting department, and was able to work my way up through the company under the leadership and mentorship of Kirk McCullough. He has been instrumental in my life and teaching so many different things. He is a really great businessman that had a lot of knowledge to transfer to me. So the transition kind of just came about one day.
I love that. So by 2023, Seneca had doubled sales over 4 years while increasing headcount by only 15%, Lori. Which changes, people, process, equipment, or market focus created that leverage?
Sure. It was a combination of several things, but I would say mostly equipment. So I transitioned to president in 2019, and we were focused on growth. We were focused on improvements. We started looking at an automation of our mold handling line at that time, and it was going to be a very significant investment for the company, one of the largest investments that we had done. So there was some risk there. Started looking at the automation of that line, calculated it out on paper and thought, got to do this, going to do it. So we got it installed, and 4 years pass, and our sales have doubled, and the capacity that opened up was more than I had calculated on a piece of paper. It was really great. So I say equipment as being the number one, but kind of a side effect of that is sometimes forgotten about is the culture improved. So employees saw the investment back into the company. They saw that the automation wasn't there to eliminate their job. The automation was there to help them, to make their job better, to take some of the physical labor out of it so that they could focus on quality and doing a better job. And so the culture was kind of shifted at that same time. And so when you don't have, when your turnover reduces, you don't spend all your time training employees, that too contributes to the success, because now you have more experienced employees that know what's going on. So I would say primarily it was equipment, but there was a lot of other things that kind of came into play at the same time that all succeeded towards being able to double our sales in a 4-year period.
Lori, I'd love for you to describe to the audience that don't know what a foundry does. Tell them a little bit about the atmosphere that you enter into. I mean, we've got molten metal right there in front of the employees. So it's a rather risky industry, but also you've got a lot of craftsmen that have been doing this job for decades, and you need to backfill that skill. And I saw a lot of age diversity in your workforce as well. So just give them sort of a 30,000 foot of what you create and the craftsmanship that goes into it.
Sure. So yeah, foundries are not glamorous. But those of us that are here, we absolutely love it. I couldn't imagine myself being anywhere else. But we are using sand to make molds and cores. So you got sand all over the place, and sand doesn't mix well with equipment either. So you got maintenance nightmares with that. We are melting raw materials of steel, pig iron into 2,700 degree molten iron, transferring that from a furnace to a ladle. So you got sparks going on with that. So it is not a glamorous environment. It is hot, heavy work. Yeah, at the end of the day, you feel like you did something good. I think that's one thing that employees really enjoy. But I lost track. What was the question?
The craftsmanship that goes into it and the age diversity on the floor.
Yep. And so there is foundries are science and engineering, a ton of it. And when you watch one of our employees, like for an example, you watch an employee pour a ladle of iron, you know, from a distance, he makes it look so incredibly easy. And I say this all the time when I'm giving tours, like, you know, he stands up there and he makes it look so easy, but there is an art form to it. He knows exactly how to make that flow of iron go into the correct location in the mold, how fast or how slow, depending on what part number we're pouring. All of that is taken into consideration. And so he makes it look easy, but it is an art form. And I also give examples when I'm giving tours of, if you watch the employees in the area, it's kind of like a dance. They all know where they're supposed to be at what time. And again, they make it look easy, but there is a very specific task that each one of them are doing to get the job done quality.
And Lori, you are also diversified in the industries that you serve. And you have to be very intentional with that diversity so as not to get too dependent on a challenged market. Talk about your diversity and the markets that you serve.
Yeah, so that's one thing I really contribute to Kirk. And so prior to Kirk, his father, we were very heavy ag in the ag, which, you know, center of Iowa, that's what you would expect. And that worked very well during that time frame. But that is something that I really give Kirk credit for is identifying that we need to be in other markets. So we are now in municipal water, valves. You can find our parts on weightlifting equipment, swing sets, decorative fireplaces, just a multitude of industries. And so what we found is, you know, typically if one industry is doing better, another one might be slower, and it really helps to balance things out a little bit.
Amazing. I'm going to transition now over to Ton Stamm. Ton is one of the founders of Chocolaterie Stamm. And Ton, I don't think you know this story. The reason I found you guys is because I was driving by your facility and David was out in the garden watering your plants outside. So I would love for you to talk about, and again, I go back to Lori's story with the molten lava, literally the molten metal, and the craftsmanship that goes into a foundry. It's very similar to the craftsmanship that goes into the chocolates that you import the chocolate from the Netherlands. And it's a very scientific and specific way that you're making your chocolate. So talk about your journey to the United States and why you picked Des Moines. Let's start there.
Well, I'm the founder of Chocolaterie Stamm as it comes to the USA, but it precedes me by a lot of years. I'm an immigrant to this country. I moved here when I was 27 years old. So that's about 2-3 years ago. That's a lie. But anyway, I come from a family that's been in the chocolate business forever. I had a meeting with my staff on Sunday, and they didn't even know this story. I was literally born above a chocolate shop. Literally, because in Holland, women often give birth at home. But it gets more interesting. 20 years later, my nephew, who was our master chocolatier in America, was born in that same bedroom above that same chocolate shop. And 20 years after him, his sister was giving birth to kids in that same bedroom above that same chocolate shop. So my family has lived above this chocolate shop on the edge of Amsterdam in some way, incarnation or another, for the last 65 years, 63 years, something like that. I wasn't in the chocolate business because my family was, and I have a lot of older brothers who were interested. So I went into the investment world, which led to American Express recruiting me to come to America. I was living here for a while, and I went, yeah, where do you go for good chocolate? Well, there was nowhere to go. So my partner, who was a hotel manager and working 70, 80 hours a week, I said, why don't we open a chocolate shop? We'll import the goods from my father and my brother at that time directly, and we'll just sell it in a little chocolate shop. And that's how we started, in a little kiosk that was in the middle of Valley West Mall in West Des Moines. From there, it just kind of took off. And then my nephew wanted to join us in America. So he came here. So then we had a master chocolatier. That was really nice. And then we started manufacturing more and more and more and more in Des Moines. And now 95% of what we sell is manufactured here. There's a small portion that comes from a cousin of mine. A cousin of mine has a chocolate factory right by the airport in Amsterdam, which is probably the largest chocolate manufacturer in the country of the Netherlands. So the combination of the Stamm family on that side of the ocean and the Stamm family on this side of the ocean makes it all possible.
Let's
on top of
talk
that,
about,
I think, sorry, go ahead.
let's talk about the way you started producing the chocolates here, because you were not manufacturing it here.
No, we
to
were
begin
not.
with.
No, we
And
were not.
What was the impetus of manufacturing it here?
Well, first of all, of course, because it's really high quality. The filled chocolates are a really high quality product with great ingredients. That means limited shelf life. So what we bought from my dad and from my brother, we had to fly in. Flying in goods is not cheap. Is not cheap. So eventually we were like, okay, what can we start doing here? And we started very simple. There's actually a picture that we are soon going to probably hang in all the stores of my father coming to visit and actually making peanut clusters at that time in my kitchen in my house, which I'm sure was not fully according to code at that time, 30 years ago, but it was just the way to start. Yeah, and then we went to a bigger facility, and now we have a facility near Grays Lake in Des Moines. And it's too bad you're doing this virtually. Otherwise, I could hand you one of these great chocolates. But
Thanks for teasing us, Todd.
I'll suffer.
Appreciate it. I want to get into the opportunity you saw in spreading the chocolate into other markets and the licensing agreements that you have entered into.
Yes.
When did you start licensing Chocolaterie Stamm?
I have to double check that with David. I think it was it 20 years ago? It was, the first one was Ames.
Okay.
The Stark family. And I think that was 20 years ago. We never went to look for it, ever. We just had people show up and go, God, we love your chocolate. We'd like to have a store like that in our town. And we're like, okay. And the first time when the Stark family, who Terry was a sheriff up in Nevada, and his wife works at Mary Greeley in Ames at that time. And when they first came, I remember David saying to them, well, your name is Stark, but that's not Stamm. And we don't do things outside of our family. And that was kind of the attitude in the beginning. And they convinced us that, well, yes, we would. So that was the start. So when people showed up and said, we'd really like a store, we thought, well, maybe we should. And personally, my assessment currently is that chocolate is a lot I think, this is just a personal observation, I think chocolate is kind of in the same place where coffee was when I moved to America. When I moved to America, you bought a pot of coffee for $1.50 and it wasn't drinkable, but everybody drank it. And now, I mean, it's a huge thing to go have a cappuccino, and all those things weren't heard of in America 30 years ago. And I don't want to be offensive, but real good chocolate is relatively new to America. So I think Americans, just like they caught a taste for great coffee, they will catch a taste for great chocolate. And I hope we will ride that wave. I mean, and what we do it for is for our employees, for the benefit and the joy we bring to people. That's always been my motivation.
And you guys bring such a luxury product at a relatively competitive cost.
Yes.
And there has to be an internal balance between that craftsmanship and that desire for super high quality products with the economics of the operation. How do you balance that conflict?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's difficult. Like last year, of course, we suffered from the tariffs. So that was a shocker, and especially cocoa prices soared also at the same time last year.
Great.
So last year was a really, really, really rough year for us. But I have never been motivated by personal gain. So I don't have any issues leaving most of the money in the company and making sure it works. So we do try to strike a balance. I mean, we had to raise our prices a little bit last year. But I took a picture of a chocolate bar at a gas station. And if you converted that to pounds price, that was more than double what we charged. Because I remember looking at it and it was over $80 a pound for chocolate at a gas station. I'm like, well, then I guess we're still real reasonably priced and we'll do okay.
My final question is about your team.
Mhm.
I accidentally tried to park in an employee's parking spot. I think her name was Laura.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I quickly moved. Talk about Laura and the way you treat your team members.
Well, we treat our team members as what they are. They're the lifeblood of this thing. I mean, you know, there's lots of people that say, I built this company. No, I didn't. They do. And we do. You do all these things together. And for example, Laura is a very loyal employee and wants to be here. She can be here as little or as much as she wants. And the reason Laura has a parking spot by the door is that Laura is pushing mid-80s and comes in when she feels like it. And then there's some work for her to do. And then she goes home. And she's one of our 2 employees in the 80s. So, yeah, even though we've only been around on this side of the ocean for 30 years, we have quite a few employees that have been here well over 20 years already. We treat people like we should. I mean, I don't want to be too expansive about it, but I unfortunately see, you know, what I call very, very large corporate America that treats employees just like they treat computers. There are things on a desk that you use and toss away and buy a new one. That's not what my relationship with human beings should be as a person. So that's also our thing about growth. How do we grow and keep that same environment? I want that same environment. I mean, we had a staff meeting on Sunday, and there's about 40 in my staff, and David actually cooked a hot meal for all of them. We didn't order in pizza. We didn't no.
It's amazing.
It was cooked for them, and we baked cookies for them, and we baked cakes for them. And the two out of the 3 people in charge of this company did all that. So, I mean, and that's the environment we want.
Awesome. Well, we're going to turn it over. We're going to start round robin. And so we're going to pull everybody back onto the screen. And while we're pulling you back on, I want each of you to think about a time when adaptation required a real commitment, not just an idea, What is one decision your organization made in the past 5 years that felt risky at the time, but now you look back and know that it was essential? And I'll start. Do you want to start, Brad?
Sure. Yeah, several years ago, the company had been buying laser cut parts from other suppliers, and the investment in the machines that do this are $1.5 to $2 million, which is that's a big investment for a small company. A lot of consternation. Boy, that's a lot of money. Is this going to work? Is this going to work? Made the decision. The return on investment was more than they had imagined. Bought a second one 2 years later. But when you're small and you're not cash flowing this, right? And you make a large investment and it pays off. That was probably a watershed moment for us, which now this allows us to weather some of the storms. When the ag economy goes down, we've got that efficiency there built into our product. So
amazing. Lori, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, mine is actually the example that I shared on the mold handling. So that, at the time, that was, the company had not invested that much money, that much into capital equipment in quite some time. And so, like I mentioned, we had put a lot of things down on paper and really studied, is this what we need to do or not? And then made the decision, okay, let's move forward. So at the time it felt, thinking back to those planning days, it did feel risky. It did feel like, this is something the company has not done before. This is new. It was exciting for me. I was very excited. And it turns out it's paid off very well.
Amazing. Tan, how about you at Chocolaterie Stamm?
I think the biggest thing is that we keep investing in, and we've currently made a sizable investment for a company our size in some new equipment that's being built in Belgium. The kind of equipment that we need is not available in America. So also for that, we need to go either to Belgium, to Switzerland, or to Germany. And we made an investment in some equipment that's coming this September for our factory in for chocolate tempering, etc. And it was a good sized step, and I think it'll pan out very, very well, because it also enables us to maybe we think about a small portion of our assortment. We can go to the wholesale market. Well, we can then maybe do that, which awesome. We currently don't do. Yeah.
Great. And Daniel, as your customers come to you with advice on calculating risk, what are some of the things that you offer to help them make these decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that we've rolled out recently has really been helpful. We get a lot of feedback about our custom price indexing. A lot of companies will, inflation is a big problem right now. A lot of companies will be coming to us talking about how we're seeing these national headlines, right? And in the producer side, 3.5% increase in prices, and we'll hear that and know that really doesn't line up with what they're actually experiencing on the ground, right? It's, again, 3.5% with producer pricing, whereas you'll look at something like steel, it's up more than 30% this year, right? And you'll look at something like aluminum, it's more than that. You see all of these really massive fluctuations with wages, with different components. I think bringing that custom price index where we get into the data and we really are able to determine what's driving your price and then forecast that price going forward has been a huge asset for planning and for just getting the information in front of our clients.
We are, I hate to even say this, about out of time and don't have time to ask that one last question, but I want to thank you, Daniel, Brad, Lori, Tan, for giving us 4 very different but deeply connected views of adaptation. Today we heard that innovation is not limited to a machine or a product. It shows up in how leaders read the economy, how they invest in their people, how they plan for their succession, how they protect the craftsmanship and stay close to the customer. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chris for a few updates from BPC.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for your work on the event today. We're so fortunate to have you part of the team leading the Made in Iowa podcast. You do a fantastic job, and we're grateful for the work that you're putting towards that. As manufacturing continues to be a key topic of discussion, we're again teaming up to Elevate Manufacturing Month this October. To mark the occasion, the September 25th issue of the Business Record will be a complete manufacturing-focused special edition. It's going to feature stories and content specific to the industry, and it's going to provide manufacturers the opportunity to showcase the amazing things that they are building and made right here in Iowa. While our panelists are also coming up here soon, we've got a number of additional events. 90 Ideas in 90 Minutes is on October 1st. We'll have our Jobs Outlook on October 15th. That'll be virtual. And our Fearless event will be on October 22nd. And we'll wrap things up with our final Power Breakfast of the year on October 29th as well. You can learn more by visiting businessrecord.com/events. Thank you again for spending some time with us today. It's clear that manufacturing is not only Iowa's largest industry, but one of its most dynamic and essential. Understanding it better helps everybody in business as they connect in with the manufacturing community. We too are a manufacturer of sorts and work each and every week to produce business record, print, and digital products. And as a locally owned business, we're working hard to navigate all the same challenges in some ways that manufacturers are as well. You can help ensure that we can continue to provide the quality reporting and events like this in the future. If you're not already a member, I'd encourage you to sign up and support the Business Record and become a member at businessrecord.com/membership, where you'll get the weekly business record and coverage each and every week. I also want to give a big thank you to our supporting sponsors, Lean Techniques, MVS, and IEDA. We can't put on events like this without their support, so thank you for helping power today's event. Final thank you to Lisa as well, and of course to our panelists who gave their time and energy to help us understand what's going on in the manufacturing industry and get a little bit of a window ahead at some of the things to come here in the future. Finally, thank you again for joining us today. You have many places that we know you can be spending your time, and we appreciate that you spent it here learning with us. Again, I'm Chris Koneski, President of BPC. Thank you for being with us today, and don't hesitate to reach out if I or our team can ever be of any help. Have a great afternoon.